Moving on to our last panel discussion for the day, managing hybrid cloud infrastructure and best practices. Let's welcome our contributors. Like always, let me start by introducing our eminent panel moderator, Mr. Mohammad Shalan. He is the Director, Project Management Office at Omar, Kassem, Alesayi Group. Our first eminent panelist is Mr. Mohamed. He is the Chief Technology Officer at Ceramica Platino Group. Up next, we have Mr. Nelson Madu. He is the CIO and Group Head of Digital and Technology Services at Coronation Insurance PLC. Last but not the least, we have Mr. Waheed ADEOYE. He is the Client Technical Specialist at IBM. I now hand over the stage to Mr. Mohammad Shalan to start the panel discussion on managing hybrid cloud infrastructure and best practices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bridget. Thank you for having me on. And it's my pleasure actually to be part of this panel and this summit as well for Hybrid Cloud Security West Africa 2022. Today we have a very interactive and useful panel talking about managing hybrid cloud infrastructure and the best practices related to that. So it's really very important. And we have very great contributors to this panel. So you will start with the first question, it will be a round of 2 rounds for this panel. And we will start defining the hybrid cloud and then moving into architecture and security and other topics. So my first question actually will be to Mr. Waheed, and it will be focused on what is the hybrid cloud? How we define multi-cloud and hybrid cloud? Because there is a lot of confusion about these terms now. It's becoming here and there, but we need to listen from you how they are and why it is important now for every organization to have this kind of multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. It's to you, Mr. Waheed.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
You can hear me. Okay. So basically, again, we've been talking about cloud since morning, and speaker after speaker, we've spoken extensively about cloud generally, and of course, a hybrid cloud. Defining hybrid cloud as an institution where you have private cloud and a public cloud, which of course can be homogeneous and it can be heterogeneous. When I say homogeneous, so when the cloud platforms are from the same cloud provider, and it becomes heterogeneous when you have the cloud platforms coming from multiple cloud provider. So a hybrid multi-cloud is where you have more than 2 different cloud provider within the same hybrid cloud. For example, private cloud, maybe you have the Microsoft platform, and in the public cloud, you have IBM, you have Amazon, or you have Microsoft as well. So this is what we call a hybrid multi-cloud. And at IBM, we believe most organizations at the end of the day will end up with a hybrid a multi-cloud. And that is why it's important for organizations to plan for it. Why do we say this? Already most organizations, even in their private cloud, they have multiple cloud platforms. The typical enterprise environment, we have a Unix environment, we have a Windows environment, or x86 environment. So each of these environments will have a different cloud platform. And on the public cloud side, they will also probably have workload in IBM cloud, or in Microsoft cloud, or in Amazon. So at the end of the day, most organizations will end up with a hybrid multi-cloud, and we need to plan for it. And the planning should include, just like previous speaker said, having an orchestration layer, but not just an orchestration layer, having a multi-cloud manager. A multi-cloud manager sits on top of all of the cloud platform that you have, and with that, you have a single point of control and a single point of management. So everything you want to do, you do it from that single point. Otherwise, if you don't have this, you will need to now rely on the different tools provided by each platform, and it can be really, really messy. So it has to be proactively designed into the architecture of the cloud. It shouldn't be an afterthought. We should know as part of our IT and our cloud journey that we're going to eventually have a multi-cloud. So having a multi-cloud manager, I think, is an important piece of the cloud architecture, an important piece of the cloud journey for enterprise organizations.
Thanks indeed, Mr. Waheed, for this. I was muted a bit. So thank you very much. It was really insightful. And this is taking us to the second question to Mr. Mohamed, actually, Hamid, about what is the best practices for hybrid cloud management? Because when we are talking about multiple vendors, multiple solution providers, and as well multiple services, then of course we need a kind of management for this and best practices so that we are getting out the value that we need out of this. So what's your expectation, Mr. Mohamed, about this?
Thank you for introduction and your time and all my best panelists. Hypercloud is one where companies on-premise infrastructure is linked with either private cloud internally management or public cloud from the third party for the vendor. Hypercloud solution allow organizations to host their application on multi-deployment environment. A hypercloud solution provider business for the flexibility since workload can be moved between a different cloud solution as peer we needed. For best practice at hypercloud management, firstly, we can get access our guarantee workload. The first step to access our guarantee workload and identify the environment required for public cloud and the private cloud and IT before searching for the cloud vendor. Second one, we can go to understand security and governance. Cloud security should be the top concerning for your organization. If you are responsible for managing the hypercloud for your company, you need to be proactive about the system security. You must be considered to leaving resource like system to control access to the data on the cloud. Third one, we can automation. Company should be considered the automation of processes will be developing and maintaining the hypercloud processors to like resources and provisioning application deployment and performance monitoring should be automated for that core and workforce can be focused to important activity like application or development, agency software improvement. Fourth pillar, choose the right cloud vendor to ensure the success of your hypercloud solution. It's your responsibility to spot the best cloud vendor for implementation and hypercloud environment. You must choose a cloud partner with a provision experience for implementing a hypercloud. Also, we can invest hypercloud management tools for where we can go to workload runs. Hypercloud management tools, we help manage and monitor cloud costs to provide a consider of experience. In fact, use these tools. Back to you, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you very much. It's really insightful. As yes, we have a lot of dimensions that we need to run and we need to manage. So it's important to get very good and strong governance for this when we are planning for a hybrid cloud, because this is very important. And other than this, we will be ending on not getting the value that we are requiring or planning. So it's really very important, yes. And this will take me actually to the other question to Mr. Nelson about the security aspects, because out of this as well, when we are planning, we need to plan for the security, how to manage the security, especially we are talking about multiple vendors and multiple scenarios. So how we manage the security, how you see this, Mr. Nelson? You are muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that.
Yes.
Thank you very much Mr. Mohamed, and the other panelists. It's my pleasure to be here. Speaking about hybrid and security standards for hybrid for best practice. Essentially, hybrid cloud entails a combination of on-prem and private and public cloud orchestrated under two platforms. Essentially, when these things happen, each and individual of those platforms have their own security peculiarities. And when they come together, there are a lot of variables that interact with each other. So what that means is that the complexity of the security now increases in terms of how they manage themselves. Now, how do we actually get this under control in a manner that the organization will get the best out of this cloud positioning, as well as keeping the security in place? So what that means is that, first of all, look at certain components of what security that affects these clouds. What are the multiple components on the two environments, the complexities around them, as well as the physical securities. Physical security in terms of even when you develop a private infrastructure and architecture, they maintain the security in such a way that the environment is watertight and it does not enable any intrusion of any kind for the data to be either harvested or taken control of by external parties. Now, another thing we're looking at is a varying hybrid framework. Essentially, different cloud platforms have different frameworks. And these frameworks, they all have peculiarity in terms of their security interactions, because each and every one of those cloud owners or vendors have their peculiarities. So now, to maintain a standard best practice for our cloud, it is important that technology team will always run continuous audits on this environment. What that means is that each time you look at these things, they are able to detect threats. And when they detect threats, they will now find out wherever it is. But where the complexity comes again, like I spoke about, is it only on the private cloud, or is it on the on-prem or on the third party? So what that means is that there's now further need for them to apply the third-party monitoring and reliability observability tools. So what does monitoring and observability tool do? What it does is that it goes further to analyze the environment, provide reporting to it, and then go beyond into deploying and utilizing technology tools to use a critical analytics of what is the impact of that particular risk, what infrastructure has it affected, and then remediations around it, such that any risk that's going to be crystallized can actually be mitigated in a good time. Now, the second part of it we're going to look at is implementing least privilege. What that means is that when you implement a least privilege in a cloud environment, you are bound to benefit about 5 standard benefits. And one of them, this would include minimizing penetration. Then also, minimizing penetration means that when you deploy any server in any environment, then you have to limit such interactions that you would have with other ones. And when you limit that, you'll be able to checkmate what happens within your environment. The second part of it is you have to minimize cyber attack when you do least privilege. Now, the third one again is you also improve productivity. And the other aspect of it is you demonstrate compliance in terms of your data protection and data integrity as may be required in terms of data protection within the environment it is. Now, data classification also is part of benefit you get when there's least privilege implementation under security. So this also takes us to the third aspect of it, which is zero trust principle. Zero trust principle means in a hybrid environment, the interaction, like I said, it is not limited, and you can't at any point in time limit such relationship between the on-prem and the cloud. And what that means is that should you not want to implement any server within your environment, what do? You first of all ensure that any interaction that's going to happen within the environment is also monitored and checked. So what I will require you to do is that you have to ensure that at every point in time, the server or the data is going to interact with, we have the necessity and the need and every reason for it to do that. Otherwise, there is really no reason why such data can be given access to other resources within the environment. Otherwise, there will be every chances of increasing attack. So when zero principle is implemented, it helps us, it goes a long way to checkmate the security aspect of the cloud. And this is where the principles that needed to be abided by in terms of cloud protection and best practices. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for this insightful. And my question to you as well is how you see the maturity of tools that is related to security today. And if we are looking in the market, we'll find very good tools and very good advice and consultants about how to manage security in our multi-cloud environment. How you see this, Nelson?
Yes. In environments today, a number of security tools are there. Now, there are a number of considerations that needed to be looked at. One of them is what you call organizational preference. First of all, in a hybrid environment and applying best practices, all the security tools are need to abide by certain principles with respect to the individual vendors. Like, if you look at various hybrid frameworks, vendors such as AWS also use a framework like Outpost, Azure Look Stack, Google and tools. But so the kind of security tools that needed to be applied will also have to become adaptable to these frameworks, and that would determine the kind of security tool that every individual and organization needed to apply to ensure that their security standard also delivers the kind of security protection they need to, because this is not a single environment, it's a multi-framework kind of environment. So it is not like a specific kind of solution that you need to apply, but it has to tailor your solution to the kind of framework under which you're actually applying those tools so that they can be very effective. Thank you.
Okay, great insights. And this is taking me actually to the other question that I will address to Mr. Waheed about when we are talking about multi-cloud and hybrid cloud. Now we are talking also about applications, because we use this cloud to run applications. So how we need to run the orchestration actually of this kind of applications, and do we need to modernize our applications when we are moving to hybrid cloud? How you see this, Mr. Waheed?
Yeah, thank you. You know, for organizations to be able to maximize the benefits of hybrid cloud, so one thing that they should be able to do is being able to move the application freely between the different cloud platforms, maybe from the private cloud to the public cloud, or between different public cloud, from Microsoft to Amazon, from Amazon to IBM. They should be able to do that. But when we look at the traditional architectures of application, so it's practically impossible to move most of the traditional application because of the peculiarities, the attachment that they have to the platform. So that is why re-architecting the application, modernizing the application is very important. And by modernizing the application, essentially what we do is changing the architecture of the application from the traditional monolithic or the treaty application to the modern cloud native application. We say modern cloud native, talking about using microservices architecture and using containerization as the architecture of the application. And what this does essentially is decoupling the application from the peculiarity of the platform. So with this, we are able to move the application around the way we want. So if today I have an application within my private cloud for economic reasons or agility reasons, I need to move it to the public cloud. I'm able to easily move it to the public cloud. If I have maybe security issues with one public cloud provider, and I think probably I need to move my workload application to another public cloud provider, I should be able to easily do that. So that is the need for application modernization. Sincerely speaking, having a hybrid cloud without having modern application, it doesn't give the full benefit of having a hybrid cloud. People talk about making application cloud enabled. You know, So where you have a virtualized application or an application in a virtualized environment and just moving the virtual environment around, you can do it, but it doesn't really give customers the full benefit of having a hybrid cloud. So modernizing applications is, I would say, a requisite for hybrid cloud. It's an important part of even a cloud journey. Moving to your cloud journey, application modernization should be part of what you have put, what you have penciled down as part of what you do as you progress on the cloud journey. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Waheed. So do you think that, for example, going into hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, this will foster utilization of microservices and container applications and something like this? So you think this will help in moving into this direction with multi-cloud and hybrid cloud? How you see these things related to this?
If I understand the question, or maybe you want to repeat the question again, because I didn't.
Yeah, because I think actually, when we are using multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, is this like a motivation for us to use container services and to use microservices?
Yeah, yes. Like I said, it's very important to modernize the application, especially if you want to have even if you want to have just public cloud platforms. We have some organizations that they are born in the cloud, so they have workloads in different public cloud, in Amazon and IBM and all that. Even for them, so they need to ensure that the application is modern. As a matter of fact, most of the applications that we have today, they are cloud native because they know the importance of this new architecture of application, especially for the one in the cloud companies, and of course other companies that are willing to take the cloud journey and having hybrid cloud or having even just public cloud, so they know the importance of this. So having application modernized is an important part of course of cloud journey, without which you cannot fully realize the benefit of the cloud. Of course, having a cloud infrastructure, you have so many benefits. The benefits can come from the structure side, can come from the other sides and all that. But the real benefit of you being able to maximize the benefit of the hybrid cloud lies in you being able to easily move your application. And I'm going to cite an example. If, for example, as an organization, I want to roll out a product, I want to roll out an application, and within my private cloud, I don't have enough resources to deploy this application. But again, public cloud is there, and I'm racing against time. I cannot wait for my organization to procure additional capacity and business infrastructure. It's going to take time for that to happen. So you can spin up a capacity on the public cloud, deploy the application that you want to deploy there, roll out your services. And when the time comes that you have enough capacity to do your private cloud, then you can easily move the application back into your private cloud. That is not to say that if the application is not a modern application, it doesn't use microservices and container architecture, you cannot move it, but how easy it is. It may not be that very easy to move the application. In fact, in some cases, it is practically impossible to even do that kind of movement because of the work and effort that is required to do the movement.
Yeah, okay, this is good and insightful actually, because as you said, and as we are aware, maybe that going to cloud, we have some kind of native cloud applications now, and these native cloud applications will help in adding a lot of services and make it easy for people to modernize their applications and to move forward. So it's really very important. And this is taking us to the next question to Mr. Mohamed actually, is about the optimization. How we optimize our hybrid cloud environments, because there is a lot of parameters that we need to control in terms of hardware, software, and a lot of security. So how we optimize all these elements and get the value that we are requiring from the hybrid cloud environments?
Thank you for these good questions. The hypercloud infrastructure market is expected to reach 128 billion by 2025. However, successful cloud computing is all about optimization for performance and security and cost. Maybe get this for 5 ways we can optimize our hyper cloud environment for maximum benefit and minimum cost. First one, implement strong cloud governance policy, because a hyper cloud is maximum public cloud, private cloud, server, and on-prem workloads that come with more complexity and sensitive data was necessary, and how can and why implementing a strong cloud governance policy that is the model of this can be helped better optimize our workload. Second pillar, don't run the cloud native tools. This may be seem a container, since seems like everyone about adaptation, the cloud native architecture, but there's truth. It is not a good to fit a hyper cloud module with the vendor can't get a tools for this native tools. Third one, watch our data increase and for transferring data moving in the end of environment can be quickly rake up and expensive to get a lot of storage and a lot of resource from our hardware and servers and also for the storage. Fourth, simplify a management through it. Sometimes all these layers and complexity that come with hyper cloud become a little over management to invest these tools to can be get this all in the cloud. Last thing, be flexible. Hyper cloud is all about flexibility, so it is to flow that you shouldn't your environment is at least one of the create for your organization need from your resource. Over to you, Mr. Mohammed. Thank you.
Okay, that's great actually. And one more point actually, maybe I need to take your input about is about when we are talking about this kind of environment and something like this and optimization, how you see on-prem. And for example, some companies have invested a lot of investments in on-prem equipment. So how they can accommodate these equipments inside the hybrid cloud and multi-cloud environments they are building?
We can mostly look at this layer, how can get managed from the on-prem and the cloud. Maybe the cloud will be cheaper than on the prem for the managing, for the cybersecurity, for the antivirus, for all the managing or our CIO and CTO managing a cloud for APIs also, and must be get the vision for 3 or 5 years ROI and TCO for our organization.
Okay, so great. So it needs to be considered somehow so that we get the value and ROI for our investment, previous investment, as well the new investments that we are talking about. So it's just important to have the ROI calculator and how to calculate, and for many years we need to calculate. Okay, great. Great insight. Thank you very much. And now I have the last question actually for this panel before we wrap up into Nelson, is about what is the business value? What is the business value for hybrid cloud infrastructure? And what are the best practices that can be implemented by organizations? Because sometimes we are talking from the technical point of view. We are as CIOs, CTOs, and we are talking from technical. When we transfer this to business, how we can deliver the message to business, and how we can inform them about the value they can get out of this hybrid cloud solutions. So how do you say this, Mr. Nelson?
Yeah, thank you very much once again, Mr. Mohamed. For organizations to maximize benefits that they need to accrue from hybrid cloud infrastructure, there are 2 fundamental benefits that we'll be looking at. One is a flexibility to the business, in terms of how they manage the infrastructure. The second is more options for data deployment. Now, to buttress this and to highlight various ways they can actually drive these benefits, we'll look at certain aspects of some instances. And one of them is the hybrid computing, which actually brings about when an organization has combines both private cloud as well as a public cloud. He might decide to host some of the critical workload on the private, whereas the organization now hosts some of these less critical loads, such as some test environment, maybe development workload, some not very critical resources that the organization are going to be used. The idea sometimes, again, is to live within the certain fundamental regulatory requirements, like in financial institutions. There may be a requirement that says certain countries might not allow within certain zones of the environment or where their host cloud is situated to be asked to host certain data from that organization. So what that means is that they will have the option but to host certain such services within their private environment and infrastructure. The second one, again, is the big data processing. And that means when big data is being processed, organization could as well, for example, use public cloud for resources such as retaining accumulated business and sales, tests, and other big data in that environment. So by that, there will be leverage on the resources from that cloud environment, maximizing the benefits of cost containment, as well as exploring the opportunity of expanding their resources on scalability basis as they go on in that kind of instance. Then looking at that again, we can also look at their organization now exploring a situation whereby when they have heavy analytics that requires a kind of a strong queries load, workload, the actual and most effective option is for them to do the same from a public cloud. That's one of the benefits, again, you're going to be driving from that. Also, in the idea of these analytical pressures, if you look at scaling up, hard up kind of analytics as well, it is more supported when you are deployed or you apply that in a public cloud per se. So because it requires a highly distributed computing task. Now, the third aspect of what I'm going to talk about is on the launching of solutions or application. Like one of my co-panelists spoke about, Waheed, he said when you're trying to implement a solution, rather than waiting for the organization in terms of cost to deploy this solution, you can explore the cloud. Then over and above what he has said, again, other consideration around it is that if it is just a new solution and that has not obtained or received strong market acceptance, and you start making a whole lot of money about it, so what you could do again is, as a test bed, you could deploy the cloud mantra that says fail fast and fail cheaply. So what you need to do is deploy this solution in the cloud, test it out, then we increase this adoption. So all you need to do is you now weigh the benefit you are accruing both from the cloud as well as deploy it on the on-prem. And when you have significantly dimensioned this, and then the business now analytics now requires that you have to deploy it in the physical environment or in your private cloud environment, you can then bring it down based on that growth that has achieved. So these are ways that these hybrid environment or hybrid cloud can actually give strong business value to organizations when they adopt it. Thank you very much.
Okay, very, very great insights, actually. And yes, because always when we are talking, the modern things now, when we are talking about digital transformation, about all these kinds of technologies, we need to recognize the business value that is coming out of this, not only on the terms of IT or technology party, but also with the business value, because we need to sell this to business. And we see currently there are sorry, there are many multiple solutions actually that's coming, and affecting business directly. And business is thinking that they can acquire a solution now immediately in no time, and they can get the value out of it. So it's really very important to get the relation between business and between technology. So thank you very much. What I'll do now is just I wrap up the presentation or the discussions that we have done. And I need you, while I'm wrapping, is just to think about like one statement that you need to finalize with to the audiences. And out of your experience, what is your most valuable advice that you need to share with audiences? So let me wrap up what we have discussed while you are thinking about the last statement that you want to share with audiences. So from our side, actually, what we have talked about, we have defined the multi-cloud environment, and we find how it's very important now to plan for this kind. Every organization today needs to plan for it, actually. And out of this planning, you need to see the practices coming from others, like the best practices. You need to see the experience from others to get very experienced people into your solution team or your consultants, so that you can get out the value as well. Of course, security is very important. And while you are designing and thinking about your hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, let's have a kind of security built in. It's very important to think of security from the first day of starting. As well, we are talking about applications, then we need to think also how we need to build our applications, because taking applications and making applications is different. We have some kind of cloud native applications, we have microservices, we have containers. So we have to think about multiple dimensions while we are thinking about multi-cloud as well. And on all of this, because we have a lot of parameters, a lot of environments, a lot of things, then we have to optimize. It's very important we optimize these things, we think about them, and we see how we can manage all these things in an optimized environment, because it's very important. If we are not getting optimized, then we will lose a lot of efficiency and effectiveness. And overall, we need to think about the business, how business value we can deliver out of these services that we are thinking of and that we are trying to put to the business and to the people and to the humanity in general. Because this kind, now we can think of a lot of services, a lot of technologies, a lot of things that even individuals now can utilize the hybrid cloud and multi-cloud, and they can put some ideas. And we are today in the project economy, we are today in idea economy, so we can generate a lot of ideas, a lot of projects out of what we know. So I just come back to you for just one statement to summarize up and to think and advise to our audiences based on your experience. So I will start with Waheed, of course. So what is your advice to our audiences in this out of this panel? In one sentence.
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my advice to organizations is, number one, we should know that cloud is a journey. So this journey needs to be well planned, and it needs to be in phases. We've seen situations where customers just go into cloud deployment, into cloud solution without having a blueprint of what they want to do, a clear plan of where they are going, and then you just the expectation will not be clear, not only to the technical team, even to the management. The expectation is not clear, and then end up with a messy project. But when you have a clear plan, a well architected cloud, with the end goal in mind, that this is where we are going, but we are starting from here. This will be our first phase, this will be our second phase, this will be our third phase. It's very clear to everybody. It is also very clear to the management, not only from a timeline perspective, but also from an investment perspective. So they know that we are just in phase one. We still have about 4 other phases to do. And the need for the phases is to make the management, the people investing the money, to see some milestone achievement, to see some milestone benefit, which will further ginger them to want to go further and invest more. You know, we talk about application modernization, we talk about the private cloud, public cloud, we talk about a whole lot of things. So this needs to be planned well. And most of the time, it's always good to start with something that can give the organization some quick benefits. For example, when I talk about agility, when we talk about flexible payment stuff and all that, this can really help the management to see the real benefits of going into cloud. But again, cloud journey is not just about the infrastructure. We talk about the application as well. So this also needs to be taken into consideration for the organization to realize the full benefits of hybrid cloud.
So great.
Thank you.
It's planning and agile planning actually, so that we agile implementation. So it's great. Now to you, Dr. Mohamed. What is your advice?
Maybe first, simplicity was you can see how you can be simple with at hybrid cloud to get your ROI with total cost of ownership. That's it.
Yes, great. So it's actually simplicity is a key, and in this kind of environment, it's really a key. Yes, good. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What's your advice?
Yes, thank you very much for having me again. For me, it's all about considering that cloud is, in as much as it has a lot of benefits, the security aspect of it can never be played down. And then every organization that wants to go into cloud will need to dimension every aspect of security that is required and make it watertight as much as possible in a manner that those benefits that is meant to be accrued from it will not be completely eluded or vanished with a very single mistake about the security aspect of it. So it is security, be secured, be security conscious, and be watertight secured. Thank you.
Yeah, so really security is very important, and to take care about holistic security actually in all dimensions and in all directions. Yes, so thank you very much. It was really my real pleasure to be part of this panel. It is really informative, and thank you very much for having us for this summit. This is the closing session, I know, for the summit. So back to you, Bridget.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammad, Shalan, for wonderfully moderating the panel. And thank you, dear panelists, Mr. Mohammad Hamid, Mr. Nensal Madu, Mr. Waheed ADEOYE, for sharing your valuable insights. We truly appreciate your presence here today. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Bridget.
Sorry, go ahead.
Thank you.
Well, what a wonderful and power-packed day this has turned out to be. I'm sure we all have learned a lot from what we heard today on the insights, trends, solutions, predictions, experiences, and for what lies ahead. With this, dear audience, we have reached the end of an insightful and successful day of the Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity West Africa Summit, driving the digital foundation to expedite innovation and business transformation at scale. The entire team of Rendezvous experts is thankful to our eminent guest of honor, Dr. Agu Collins, Director of Research and Development Department, National Information Technology Development Agency, our esteemed speakers, eminent panelists, our sponsors, IBM Active Edge, Microsoft, SUSE, and Manage Engine. Last but not the least, I thank all our dear delegates for joining us today in huge numbers and making this day a success. For tomorrow's session, we once again have an exceptional lineup of some of the brightest minds from the industry. So kindly do not miss the last day of the Hybrid Cloud and Cybersecurity West Africa 2022, tomorrow between 2 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. West Africa time. Have a great evening, everyone, and stay safe.
Okay.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.
Have a nice evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.